The document had been open for 11 months, and it still had no words in it. Elio Vantari looked at it the way a man looks at a debt. The screen floated above his desk in the cold blue dark of the archive deck, and at the top of it, in the plain institutional font that the Beacon Authority insisted on, sat the title he had not chosen and could not escape. Statement of Purpose, Vesper Station Cultural Beacon, to be transmitted as preamble to all outbound signal. Below that, 142 centimeters of empty white. He was 19 years old. He had been the junior archivist aboard Vesper Station for 2 years and 4 months, which meant he was the youngest person on a crew of 31 and would remain so until the next rotation. And it also meant that, when the Authority sent down a task that nobody senior wanted, it fell to him the way water falls to the lowest deck. Write the preamble, they had said, 300 words, explain what the beacon is for, explain in essence what we are. 11 months. Elio pressed his palms against his eyes until colors bloomed. Somewhere above him, through 4 meters of hull and 100,000 kilometers of nothing, the beacon was singing. It never stopped. It was the only thing on Vesper Station that never stopped. The beacon was a phased transmission array the size of a cathedral, bolted to the outer face of an asteroid that had been hollowed and pressurized 80 years ago by people who were now mostly dead. It broadcast on 900 bands into the deep, in every direction, without pause, without encryption, without any expectation of an answer. It had been doing so for 81 years. What it broadcast was everything. Not a curated message, not a golden summary. That had been the original plan, back when the project was called the Envoy Signal, and a committee of very serious people had spent 6 years arguing about which 48 images best represented the human species. The committee had collapsed. The arguments had gotten ugly. Somebody had walked out over a photograph of a wheat field. Somebody else had walked out over the omission of a photograph of a wheat field. And so in the end, the beacon had been built by exhausted people who had decided to solve the problem by refusing to solve it. Send all of it, they said. Send the whole ugly library. Send the symphonies and the arguments about the symphonies. Send the recipes. Send the divorce filings. Send the 12,000 hours of a man in Osaka narrating the growth of his tomatoes. Send the war crimes tribunals and the lullabies. Send the mathematics and the astrology. Send the prayers of 900 religions and the pamphlets of the people who despised all 900. Send it unsorted, unranked, unexplained. They had called it, half as a joke, the complete and unedited confession of the human species, and then the joke had hardened into policy, and then the policy had hardened into 81 years of unbroken transmission, and now here was Elio Vantari, 19, staring at a blank document that was supposed to explain it. 300 words. He had written 12,000 and deleted all of them. His shift technically was the night hours. Vesper ran on a station clock that mimicked a planet nobody aboard had been born on, and by tradition the deep hours, 100 to 500, were the least supervised, the least monitored, the least anything. During those hours, the archive's automated selection systems went quiet, and a human being chose what the beacon sent. It was ceremonial. It was pointless. There was no one to hear. Elio loved it more than anything he had ever done. He would sit in the dark with the whole library open around him like a city scene from orbit, and he would choose. Tonight he had sent a recording of a woman in Reykjavik teaching her daughter to whistle badly for 6 minutes, both of them laughing. He had sent a lecture on the metallurgy of Bronze Age blades. He had sent the sound of a stadium the moment before a goal, which is not the sound of joy but the sound of the possibility of joy, which is a different thing and Elio thought, a better one. He had sent a man reading a suicide note he had written at 22 and not used, reading it aloud at 71, with commentary, occasionally laughing at his younger self, occasionally not. He had sent all of that out into the dark tonight, And now he sat in front of a blank page and could not say why. That was the thing, that was the exact thing. He knew the beacon was the most important object ever built by his species. He believed that. He felt it in his teeth, and he could not say why in 300 words or 3,000 or 3. Every sentence he wrote was true and inadequate. We are curious. True. Inadequate. We are the species that speaks into the dark. True. Insufferable. We wish to be known. True. And also a lie, because half the library was things humans had spent enormous energy trying not to be known for. And yet those were in there too, because someone had insisted. And the insisting was the point. And how do you put the insisting in 300 words? Elio typed, "We are." He stopped. He deleted it. He put his head down on the desk, and the cool of the surface was very good, and he thought, not for the first time, that perhaps he simply wasn't intelligent enough for the job, and that this was fine, and that in 8 months his rotation would end, and he would go home to a planet he had left at 17 and become someone else, someone who did not have to answer the question. That was when the proximity alarm went off. It did not sound like an alarm. That was the first strange thing. It sounded like a tone, a single soft tone, patient and almost polite, and Elio lifted his head and looked at it stupidly for 2 full seconds before his stomach understood what his brain hadn't. Vesper Station had no defenses. It had no weapons. It had never needed a proximity alarm for anything but drifting rock, and the alarm for drifting rock was a klaxon, and this was not a klaxon. This was the other one, the one they had installed 60 years ago and never used. The one for the thing that could not possibly happen. Contact. Elio was on his feet. The archive deck was 3 levels below command, and he took the ladder because the lift would have been slower. And by the time he came up through the hatch, the command deck was full of people who had been asleep 4 minutes ago. And Station Director Oreth Vaskaal was standing at the forward viewport with her hands at her sides, and she was not moving at all. Elio followed her eyes. For a moment he could not resolve what he was looking at, because there was nothing to give it scale. It was simply that a region of stars had gone out. Then a running light kindled somewhere along its underside, a single amber point, very small, and Elio's mind seized that point and used it, and the scale arrived all at once, and he made a sound that was not a word. The ship was longer than the asteroid. It hung above them like a decision that had already been made. It had no visible engines and no visible seams. It was matte and dark and shaped like something that had never been designed to be looked at, and along its flank, in a script no human had ever seen, ran characters 400 meters tall that pulsed with slow amber light, over and over, patient as breathing. "Are they hailing?" Costa said. Her voice was very steady. Elio would remember that for the rest of his life, that her voice was very steady. Ma'am, they're not hailing," said the comms officer. His name was Petrosian, and his hands were shaking so badly he had to press them flat on the console. "They're asterisk transmitting. It's not a hail, it's a broadcast. It's on every band we have. It's on the beacon's asterisk own asterisk bands." "Put it on." "Ma'am, I don't know if." "Put it on." Petrosian put it on. And a voice filled Vesper Station, and it spoke in flawless, unaccented, patient human speech, and it said, "Vesper Station, this is the Dominion vessel asterisk certainty of form asterisk, under the command of Oreth Vaskaal, Axiarch of the 9th Reduction. We have received your transmission. We have received 81 years of your transmission. We have listened to all of it." The command deck was so silent Elio could hear the air handlers. "We have come," the voice continued, "for the answer." They did not board. That was the thing nobody expected afterward, when it was recounted and re-recounted and finally carved into a shape that could be told. They did not board. They asked. The voice explained, with a courtesy that made the whole thing worse, that the Dominion required one member of Vesper Station's complement to attend an interview aboard the Asterisk Certainty of Form. The individual would be returned unharmed within a fixed period. The Dominion did not desire the station's destruction, the station's resources, or the station's people. The Dominion desired information. The voice then explained, with the same courtesy, that if no individual attended, the Dominion would be required to obtain the information by other means, and enumerated those means in the manner of a man reading a weather report, and Elio had to sit down. And then the voice said the last thing, and the last thing was the thing that changed everything. We require the individual who selects the night transmissions. Every head on the command deck turned. No, Costa said. Absolutely not. He's 19. Ma'am. He is asterisk 19 years old, Petrosian, and I will not. They named the night hours, Elio said. He didn't remember standing up. He was standing. They named the night hours, he said again, and his voice came out thin and strange and not entirely his. That means they've been listening long enough to know the night hours are different. That means they've been listening for a long time. That means, he stopped, swallowed. That means they know exactly who I am, ma'am, and they know I'm 19, and they asked for me anyway. That is not a reason to go. No, Elio agreed. It's a reason to be terrified, but it means they want something from me specifically, and as long as they want something from me, they're not shooting. Costa looked at him for a long moment. She was 54 years old, and she had spent her career in a job that was supposed to be a quiet one, and Elio watched her understand that it had stopped being a quiet one, permanently, about 6 minutes ago. What do they want? She said. They said, Elio's mouth was dry, they want the answer. The answer to what? And Elio Vantari, 19, junior archivist, custodian of the night hours, author of 11 Months of Blank Page, felt something turn over in his chest that was almost a laugh. I think, he said, they want to know what we are. The shuttle that came for him was small and empty, and it flew itself. It docked without touching Vesper's clamps, holding itself a handspan off the hull with something that made the deck plating hum in his molars, and its interior was a smooth gray cavity with a single seat that had clearly been manufactured, very recently, for a human body. Someone had measured him. Someone had watched the beacon's own broadcasts, the anatomy lectures, the medical archives, 81 years of unguarded self-documentation, and built a chair. Elio sat in the chair. He had brought nothing. There had been nothing to bring. The shuttle rose. Vesper Station fell away beneath him, small and shabby and beautiful, a potato of gray rock with a cathedral of antennas bolted to its face, still singing into the dark, still saying everything and explaining nothing, and Elio pressed his hand against the port and watched the only home he had until it was a speck, and then the asterisk certainty of form took him in the way a whale takes in water. The corridor was long and it was warm and it smelled. This was the detail that undid him. It smelled like nothing at all. Not sterile, not clean, nothing. A total engineered absence, as though the ship had been designed to have no properties that weren't intentional. He walked for a long time. No one escorted him. There was only one way to go. At the end, there was a room. The room was a hemisphere, perhaps 60 meters across, and its curved wall was not a wall but a display. And the display was Elio's knees went soft. The display was the library. His library. Human faces, thousands of them, 10,000. Streaming, layered, overlapping, playing simultaneously in silent parallel. A woman whistling. A stadium. A bronze blade under a lecturer's hand. A man of 71 laughing at his own suicide note. A wheat field, a wheat field, a wheat field. Every image the beacon had ever sent, flowing across the inner surface of an alien warship like weather. And in the center of the room, standing with his back to Elio, watching it, was the Axiarch. He was tall, Not monstrously, perhaps 2.5 meters, and he was not built like a nightmare. That was somehow worse. He was bipedal, long-limbed, and his skin was a deep polished gray like river stone, and he wore no armor, only a long, unadorned garment the color of ash. When he turned, his face was almost restful. Broad, flat-planed, with 2 eyes set wide and low, the color of old amber, and an expression of profound and genuine fatigue. "Elio Vantari," said Oreth Vaskaal, in that same flawless human voice. "Thank you for coming. I know you were not entirely free to refuse. I would like you to know that I am aware of that, and that I regret it, and that the regret changes nothing. It is important to me that you understand precisely how much of this is coercion, so that you do not later comfort yourself with the idea that it was a conversation between equals." Elio opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "You are frightened," Vaskaal observed. "That is appropriate. Sit." There was a chair. There had not been a chair. Elio sat in it because his legs had already decided. The Axiarch folded himself down onto a low bench across from him, unhurried, and for a while he simply looked at Elio, and behind him 10,000 human faces flickered and sang without sound. "I am going to explain to you what I want," Vaskaal said at last, "because I have found that species perform better when they understand the shape of the question. Will you listen?" Elio nodded. It was all he had. "Good." Vaskaal leaned forward, and his amber eyes were steady and tired and enormously old. "Every species," he said, "has an axiom." He let that sit. It is a single statement, one sentence, sometimes two. It is the irreducible core of what a species is, the drive beneath its drives, the thing that remains when you have stripped away every culture, every history, every accident of climate and biology. It is not a stereotype. It is not a slander. It is a truth so deep that the species itself is usually unaware of it, in the way a fish is unaware of water. He gestured at the flowing wall. "The dominion of the 1,000 suns does not conquer with fleets. Fleets are expensive. The dominion conquers with asterisk axioms. When you know what a species is, truly is, at the root, you know what it will do. You know what it will trade, what it will die for, what it will pretend not to want. You know where it will break." He said this without relish. He said it the way a physician says the tumor is here. The Sekhali have compiled 3,041 axioms, 3,041 species, understood. Not one of those understandings has ever been wrong. Elio found his voice. It was a small voice, but it was there. "And you want ours," he said. "I want yours," Vaskaal agreed. "Why me? I'm nobody. I'm an archivist. There are diplomats, there are asterisk presidents asterisk, there are people who—" "There are," Vaskaal said, "and I have listened to all of them. 81 years of your species explaining itself to the dark, speeches, constitutions, manifestos, prayers." Something moved across his face that Elio could not read. "They are useless. They are what a species says it is. I do not want what you say you are." He leaned closer. "For 11 months, said Oreth Vaskaal, "I have watched a 19-year-old boy sit alone in the dark and choose, without instruction, without audience, without any reason at all, what his species should send into the void. No one is watching you. No one is grading you. And still you choose, and your choices are asterisk incoherent asterisk Elio Vantari, a grandmother whistling, a metallurgy lecture, a man laughing at his own despair. I have run those choices through the reduction 11,000 times, and they do not converge." The Axiarch's voice did not rise. It did not need to. "You are the only human being I have observed who is telling the truth. So I will ask you, and you will answer, and neither of us will leave this room until you do." Behind him, 10,000 faces went on flickering. "What," said the Axiarch, "is your species?" Elio Vantari had rehearsed this. Not this, obviously. Not an alien warship, not an amber-eyed giant, not 10,000 human faces streaming across a wall like rain down a window. But the question, he had rehearsed the question, 11 months of rehearsal, every night in a chair in the dark with a blank page. So he opened his mouth and gave the answer he had given the blank page 100 times. "We're curious." Vaskaal did not move. "Go on." That's it. That's the core. We look at things, we take them apart. We went into the ocean, and we went into the sky, and we went into the atom, and we didn't need a reason. We just, Elio's hands were moving. He made himself stop them. There's a word, why. It's one of the first words a child learns, and they never stop saying it. We're the species that asks why. "Yes," said the Axiarch. Elio blinked. "Yes." "It is true." Vaskaal rose, unfolding, and walked to the streaming wall. "It is beautifully true. I have seen it in your archive 10 million times. The child at the tide pool. The astronomer who went blind and kept observing by having his students describe the sky aloud. It is true, Elio Vantari." He turned. "Now watch." He raised one long gray hand. The wall changed. The 10,000 faces contracted, collapsed, funneled, and became a single vast lattice of light, a structure like frost on glass, turning slowly in the air. It was, Elio understood without being told, an engine. Not of metal, of logic. "The reduction," Vaskaal said. 3,041 times it has found the floor beneath a species. Watch what it does with curiosity asterisk. The lattice pulsed, and along its edges symbols began to burn. "Query," said the reduction, in a voice like a held chord. "If curiosity is irreducible in asterisk Homo sapiens, then curiosity must be present at all decision nodes of maximum sincerity. Retrieving decision nodes of maximum sincerity." The frost lattice bloomed. Images spat out of it, hundreds, thousands, faster than sight. "Sample," said the reduction. "Subject, agrarian population, Anatolia 12,000 years before present. Subject possesses functional understanding of seasonal migration. Subject ceases migration. Subject remains in one valley for 4 generations, cultivating a single grain, performing identical labor in curious sedentary content. Curiosity, absent. Behavior, foundational to species. Contradiction." Another burst. "Sample, subject, 900 million individuals, 20th century common era, presented with a novel and verifiable body of knowledge concerning the composition of their atmosphere. Response, rejection, sustained across decades in the presence of the evidence. Curiosity, actively suppressed. Contradiction." Another. "Sample, subject, monastic order, Iberia, 9th century, voluntary renunciation of inquiry. Duration, lifetime. Reported subjective outcome, joy, curiosity, renounced. Contradiction." The lattice turned. It was not cruel. It was worse than cruel. It was asterisk thorough. Axiom candidate asterisk curiosity, rejected. Predictive accuracy, 51%. Coin. Silence. Elio realized he had gripped the arms of the chair hard enough to hurt. 51%, Vaskaal said quietly. "Do you understand what that means? It means that if I built my entire campaign against your species on the proposition that humans are curious, if I baited you with mysteries, if I lured your fleets with anomalies, if I built my strategy on your hunger to know, I would be right half the time. Half. I might as well flip a stone." He came back and sat. "That is not an axiom. That is a asterisk trait. Your species has 10,000 traits. I want the floor beneath them." Elio's heart was going very fast. "Then, okay, survival, we survive. We're the ones who don't die. We were nearly wiped out twice, 3 times. There was a bottleneck. There were maybe a few thousand of us left, and we came back. We always come back, we." "Reduction," said Vaskaal without turning. "Query, axiom candidate asterisk survival." The lattice flared. Contradiction retrieved in 0.4 seconds. Sample, 300 individuals, Masada, 1st century. Sample, pilot cadre, Pacific Theater, 20th century, voluntary terminal deployment. Sample, physician, Warsaw, 20th century, declines multiple offers of personal survival to accompany 200 children to certain death. Sample: 11,000 recorded instances of self-destruction undertaken for abstract propositions with no genetic benefit to the actor or the actor's line. Those are outliers, those are. Sample, the reduction continued gently, Homo sapiens * narrative corpus, frequency analysis. Stories in which a protagonist chooses survival over principle, 11%. Stories in which a protagonist chooses principle over survival, 63%. Stories in which the protagonist who chooses survival is depicted as *admirable*, 4%. The lattice went still. Axiom candidate * survival, rejected. A species whose deepest self-narrative punishes survival cannot have survival as its floor. Predictive accuracy, 44%. 44, Elio's voice cracked. That's worse than nothing. It is worse than nothing, Vaskaal agreed. If I threatened your species with annihilation expecting you to yield, I would be wrong more often than I was right. I would be * anti-correct. Do you know how many species that is true of out of 3,041? Elio shook his head. None, said the Axiarch. It has never been true, not once. Every species yields to the threat of extinction. It is the closest thing the galaxy has to a law. He looked at his own hands. And then I found you, and I ran the numbers, and the numbers said, threaten them with extinction, and they may very well thank you for the occasion. The interrogation went on. Elio would later have no reliable sense of how long. There was no clock. The light in the hemisphere never changed. Food appeared once, a gray paste that tasted of absolutely nothing and left him neither hungry nor full, and water, and once he slept, or rather he stopped being awake for a period, curled in the chair like a child, and when he came back the Axiarch was in exactly the same position, watching him with those tired amber eyes, and Elio had the awful conviction that he had not moved at all. They went through it, all of it. Everything Elio had ever thought about what his species was, and everything he had never thought and invented on the spot out of terror, and the reduction took each one and turned it in the light and showed him the crack. We are violent, rejected. 40% of the recorded corpus is dedicated to the condemnation of violence, and the condemnations are written by the same hands that hold the spears, and a species that hates its own violence more than it loves it cannot be defined by violence. We are cooperative, rejected. 78% of human political history is the story of cooperation failing, and the failures are as sincere as the cooperations, and the same man who dies for his village will not cross the road for the next village, and the same man will then cross an ocean to die for a stranger, and none of it converges. We love, rejected, and here the reduction was almost tender, because love is a mechanism, not a floor, and the Sekhali had catalogued 400 species that love more fiercely, more permanently, and with less betrayal than humans do. The Ilmari mate once and grieve for 80 years. The Oswine will not eat if a broodmate is hungry, and none of those species produced a beacon, and all of them had been axiomed inside a decade. We build. We destroy. We hope. We suffer. We laugh. Rejected, 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 rejected. And somewhere in the middle of it, somewhere in the 6th or 8th or 12th hour, Elio stopped being frightened, which surprised him very much, and started being something else, something for which he did not have a word yet, and which felt, he tested it carefully, the way you test a bad tooth, which felt almost like being seen. Because the Axiarch was not mocking him. That was the thing. That was the thing Elio kept coming back to in the strange floating exhaustion of the 12th hour. Every time the reduction rejected an answer, Vaskaal's face did something small and terrible, not triumph, not contempt. Dismay. Why does it bother you? Elio said. He had not planned to say it. It simply arrived in his mouth in a silence after the rejection of we are the species that tell stories, rejected. 41 other catalog species produce narrative art. 2 of them produce more of it. The Vesh have been telling a single continuous story for 9,000 years, and it is, the reduction noted with something like regret, better than anything in the human corpus. Vaskaal's head came up. You keep going, Elio said. You've been at this for I don't know how long, you look like you haven't slept in a year, and every time it fails you look like somebody died. He was too tired to be careful. Why does it bother asterisk you? You're the ones with the ship, just kill us. Isn't that easier? If you can't file us, just burn us and file the ashes. The Axiarch was quiet for a very long time. Do you know, he said at last, what the Sekhali Axiom is? Elio said nothing. We are not exempt, said Vaskaal. That is the first law of the reduction. Any species that applies it must first apply it to itself. 3,042 axioms, Elio Vantari, not 3,041. Ours is the first entry in the book. He raised his hand and the lattice reshaped, and a single line of Sekhali script burned in the air. And under it, obligingly, in the plain institutional font of the human beacon authority, its translation. The Sekhali are those who cannot bear not to know. Elio stared at it. It is not a boast, Vaskaal said. It is a diagnosis. It is the shape of our cage, and we know it is a cage, and knowing has never once let us out. Do you understand? An unresolved species is not to us an inconvenience. It is not a strategic problem. It is an asterisk wound. We have physicians who treat it. There is a word in our language, kessa. It means the sickness of a thing that will not close. When the Ilmari resisted reduction for 11 years, 4 of our Axiarchs took their own lives, not from failure, from asterisk itching. He lowered his hand. The script went out. So no, I cannot simply burn you and file the ashes. If I destroyed your species without an axiom, I would carry your unclosed shape in my skull until I died, and so would every Sekhali who read the report, and the report would be read by 9 billion of us, and the wound would be 9 billion wide. He smiled the first time, and it was the most exhausted expression Elio had ever seen on a living face. You have not been captured, Elio Vantari. I have. Later, the 14th hour, the 16th, Elio asked to see the fleet. He did not know why he asked. Perhaps he wanted to be frightened again, properly, because the not being frightened was starting to feel like a kind of dying. Vaskaal showed him. The wall cleared, and the human faces went away, and instead there was a tactical schema, and the schema showed the human sphere, all of it, every colony, every station, every rock with a name on it, laid out in cold blue light, and hanging over it, in careful geometric formations, were 411 ships of the Dominion of the Thousand Suns. 411. Over Ceres, over Kepler Reach, over the Ganymede shipyards and the terrace farms of New Ashkelon and the 3 million people of the Hesperus arcology, and over Earth there were 60, hanging in a lattice so perfectly spaced that Elio's brain read it as decoration before it read it as a firing solution. How long have they been there? Elio whispered. 9 days. Nobody's asterisk seen. No, Vaskaal agreed, they have not. Elio looked at the 60 ships over Earth and felt his entire life rearrange itself. The Dominion has given me a term, the Axiarch said. He spoke to the schema, not to Elio. I did not ask for it. I argued against it. The Council does not permit an Axiarch to pursue a reduction indefinitely. The Kessa asterisk, you understand. It is considered a mercy, and so there is a term, and at the end of the term I must file. If I file an axiom, your species is entered into the book, and your worlds are absorbed under the standard protocols, and you will live, most of you, in the way that 3,000 species live. Known, managed, unsurprising, and safe. And if you don't file an axiom... Vaskaal turned. Then the entry reads irreducible, he said, and the standard protocol for an irreducible species is not conquest. It is asterisk sterilization. Immediate, total, and without negotiation. A thing that cannot be predicted cannot be permitted to exist beside us, because the entire architecture of the Dominion, every fleet, every treaty, every one of those 3,041 pieces, rests on the proposition that a species once known will do what it is. If that proposition has an exception, then it is not a proposition. It is a habit, and the thousand suns cannot be held together by a habit. He said it without any inflection at all. You will forgive me, Oreth Vaskaal said, if I have not been entirely candid about the stakes. I did not want to shape your answers with fear. But we are past that now, and you have a right to know what your empty page is worth. Elio could not feel his hands. How long, he managed. The term expires, said the Axiarch, in 51 hours. There was a long silence in the hemisphere. The tactical schema turned slowly, 60 ships over Earth, and Elio Vantari, 19, junior archivist of Vesper Station, sat in a chair built for his body by a machine that had measured him from a distance of 2 light years, and thought about the blank page. 11 months. 51 hours. He started horribly to laugh. It came up out of him like something breaking, and he pressed both hands over his mouth, and it came out anyway, through his fingers, and he laughed until his eyes ran and his ribs hurt. And Vaskaal watched him with an expression of profound and clinical alarm, and finally Elio got hold of himself and wiped his face and said, in a voice that did not sound like his own, "You picked the wrong human." "I picked the asterisk only asterisk human." "No, you don't understand." Elio was still shaking. "You want to know why my choices don't converge. You want to know why I sit in the dark and send a whistling grandmother and a metallurgy lecture and a man laughing at his own suicide note." He looked up, and his eyes were wet and very bright. "Because I've been trying to write it down for 11 months. The asterisk preamble, 300 words. What the beacon is asterisk for. What we asterisk are. That's my asterisk job asterisk Axiarch. That's literally my job, and I have failed at it every single night for 11 months, and I cannot do it. And now you're telling me that if I can't do it in 51 hours, you're going to kill everyone I have ever loved." He laughed again once, and it was a terrible sound. "You didn't capture the human who has the answer," he said. "You captured the human who's been asterisk losing to the question." And Oreth Vaskaal, Axiarch of the 9th Reduction, holder of the book, wielder of 411 ships, went very still. "Say that again," he said. "I said you captured the human who's been losing to the question." Vaskaal crossed the hemisphere in 4 strides. He did not loom. He knelt, actually knelt, folding those long limbs down until his amber eyes were level with Elio's, and Elio smelled nothing at all, and that absence was somehow the most alien thing about him. "You have been asterisk trying," the Axiarch said, "for 11 months, deliberately, in writing, to produce a statement of what your species is." "Yes." "With access to your entire archive." "Yes." "And you have failed. Every night. And no one punished asterisk you for this failure. No one removed you from the post. No one assigned it to a more capable individual." Elio wiped his face with the heel of his hand. "They keep sending reminders," he said, "automated ones. Every 90 days. Preamble outstanding. That's it. That's the whole punishment. I think," and here he heard himself say a thing he had never said aloud, "I think everyone who's ever had the job has failed at it, and I think they know, and I think the reminders are the only way anybody can admit it." Something happened in Oreth Vaskaal's face. It was not an expression Elio could name. It moved through the flat gray plains like weather over a plain, quick, silent, immense, and it left the Axiarch looking, for one unguarded instant, asterisk young. "The beacon has no preamble," he said. "No." 81 years of transmission, 900 bands, to every receiver in the arm of this galaxy, and no statement of intent. "There's a header," Elio offered weakly. "Position data." physical constants, so you'd know it wasn't noise. I know the header. Vaskaal's voice had gone strange. I have read the header 400 times. It is the most eloquent document I have ever encountered, and I did not understand why until this moment. He rose. He walked away 3 steps and stopped. Do you know what the Sekhali did when we first went into the dark? Do you know what our beacon said? Elio said nothing. It said, the Sekhali are those who cannot bear not to know. He turned. 9 words. We put our axiom at the front of everything, every ship, every treaty, every transmission. It is on the hull of this vessel, 400 meters tall and light, so that anything that sees us knows immediately and precisely what it is dealing with. The amber eyes were very wide. And your species built the largest transmitter in the known arm of the galaxy, and pointed it at everything, and left the first page blank. It's not a statement, Elio said. It's not, we didn't asterisk decide that. We just couldn't agree. There was a committee and it fell apart and rather than agree, said Vaskaal, you sent asterisk everything. Yes, including the disagreement. Elio opened his mouth, closed it. There is a recording in your archive, the Axiarch said, of a committee session, year 42 of the project, 206 minutes, 12 of your kind screaming at one another about a photograph of a field of grain. It is transmitted in full on band 411 every 17 days. I have listened to it 900 times. He came back and sat down heavily like something in him had been cut. I thought it was an error, an archival mistake, a thing that had been swept in by accident. It probably was. No, Vaskaal's hand closed slowly. No, I no longer believe that. I think you send it because you could not bring yourselves to leave it out. I think there is no mechanism in your species for leaving things out. And that. He stopped. He sat perfectly still for 11 seconds, and Elio watched him, and understood, with a slow cold prickle up the back of his neck, that he was watching an Axiarch of the Dominion of the Thousand Suns have an idea. Reduction, said Vaskaal. The lattice bloomed. Axiom candidate, he said, and his voice was not quite steady. Homo sapiens is the species that cannot leave anything out. The lattice turned. Symbols burned along its edges, faster and faster, and Elio held his breath. Contradiction, said the reduction. Sample, human censorship corpus. Volume, extensive. Sample, destruction of the Library of Alexandria, human agency, contested. Sample, 11,000 recorded instances of state-directed erasure of language, record, and name. Sample, individual behavior, subject discards photographs of former spouse. Subject burns diary. Subject requests deletion of self from network at rate of 900,000 per annum. Human beings leave things out constantly. They are perhaps the most enthusiastic omitters in the catalog. Vaskaal's jaw worked. Axiom candidate rejected. Predictive accuracy, 38%. And Elio said very quietly, but we sent asterisk that asterisk too. The lattice paused. The censorship, Elio said. The book burnings, the erasures. It's in the archive. We sent the record of everything we tried to delete. We sent the list of the things we destroyed and the names of the people who destroyed them and their reasons and their bad reasons and the arguments people made asterisk for asterisk the burning. He was on his feet without knowing it. We put the omissions in. We couldn't even leave out the leaving out. Silence. Reduction, said Vaskaal hoarsely. Confirmed. Confirmed, said the reduction. And then, after a pause that Elio would swear was not a computational pause, recursion detected. The adjutant arrived in the 22nd hour. She came without announcement, and she was smaller than Vaskaal and older, and where his skin was polished riverstone hers was the gray of ash long dead, cracked at the joints of the hands, and she wore a chain of small dark stones that clicked when she moved. Her name, Vaskaal said without warmth, was Ismhallo, 2nd of the 9th, and she had come to observe. She had come, Elio understood immediately, to end it. Axiarch, she did not look at Elio. She looked at the lattice, which was doing something Elio did not have the vocabulary for. It had stopped being frost and started being something more like coral growing, branching again, each branch spawning 3 more, filling the upper hemisphere with a slow, silent proliferation of light. How long has the reduction been in recursion? 6 hours. 6, Ismhallow's head tilted, and you have not halted it. No. It is consuming 11% of the ship's core. It is consuming 19, Vaskaal said. I have authorized more. The adjutant turned, and Elio saw her eyes for the first time, not amber. A pale, exhausted milk white, the eyes of something that had looked at too many things. File the axiom, she said. There is no axiom. File 1 asterisk anyway. She said it flatly as one states an obvious remedy. Homo sapiens, acquisitive apes with delusions of transcendence, 49% predictive. It is asterisk enough, Oreth. It is enough to hold the book together, it is enough for the council, it is enough for the protocols, and then we absorb them, and they live, and we sleep. It would be a lie. It would be a asterisk rounding. The reduction does not round. The reduction, said Ismhallow, is a machine we built, and I have been in the service for 290 years, and I will tell you what no Axiarch ever writes down. She stepped close to him. 19 of the entries in that book are lies. I have signed 4 of them myself. The Kethrid are not asterisk those who serve. The Kethrid are those who were asterisk tired, and I filed asterisk service, and it held, and they are alive today because it held. Her voice did not rise. The book does not need to be true. The book needs to close. Elio watched Vaskaal's face and saw nothing move, and understood that this was the sound of something enormous straining. Get out, the Axiarch said. 29 hours, Oreth. Get out. She went. At the threshold she paused and turned, and for the first time she looked directly at Elio Vantari, and her white eyes moved over him slowly, the way one reads a warning label. Boy, she said, do you know what you are doing to him? Elio's mouth was dry. No. Good, said Ismhallow, neither does he, and she was gone. The 24th hour, the 28th. Vaskaal did not eat. Elio was not certain the Sekhali ate at all, or slept, but he had begun to notice things. A fine tremor in the long gray hands, a way the Axiarch had of pressing the heel of his palm into his left eye briefly, and then pretending he hadn't. Tell me about the night hours, Vaskaal said. They were sitting on the floor now, both of them. The chair was still there and neither of them was in it, and the coral of the reduction had filled the whole hemisphere above them and was still growing, silent, and its light fell down on them like light through water. There's nothing to tell. You choose in the dark for no audience. Tell me how you choose. Elio looked up into the coral. I don't know, he said. That's the honest answer. I don't have a system. I sit there and I open the library and he stopped, tried again. Okay, 2 nights ago, I sent 9 hours of a man in Osaka talking about tomatoes. I know, I listened to all 9 hours. You, Elio laughed helplessly. Why? Because you chose it, said Vaskaal, and I do not understand you, and it is the only evidence I have. Why did you choose it? Because Elio pushed his hands into his hair. Because he's so boring. Because he's the most boring man in the archive. He talks about the pH of soil for 40 minutes. He describes the color of a leaf that has a little rust on it, and he says it's the color of an old coin. And then he says, no, that's not right, it's more like. And he thinks about it for a full minute, Axiarch, a full minute of dead air. And then he says, it's like the color of the water in the harbor when I was a boy. Elio's throat closed. And that's it, he said. That's the whole thing. He doesn't explain. He goes back to the pH, and I sat there in the dark and I thought somebody has to hear that. Not because it's important. It isn't. It isn't important at all. He turned his face up to the coral. It's just asterisk true. Somebody was alive and he looked at a rusty leaf and it took him back to a harbor and he told a machine about it because nobody else was listening. And in 11,000 years, no one will know his name, and the harbor will be gone, and the tomatoes will be gone, and I. He stopped because his voice had done something he could not fix. I didn't want him to just stop, he said. That's all. I didn't want that to just stop. Oreth Vaskaal did not speak for a long time. Then he said, reduction, Axiom candidate. Homo sapiens is the species that refuses to let anything be lost. Contradiction, said the reduction almost immediately, and Elio flinched. Sample, human mortality practices, cremation, sky burial, deliberate anonymity. Sample, the philosophical corpus in which the acceptance of loss is identified as the highest attainable wisdom by 91% of surveyed traditions. Sample, subject Vantari, Elio, personal record. Subject deleted 11,000 words of his own composition on 411 separate occasions and did not archive the deletions. Elio's head came up. How do you know that? The reduction did not answer. It did not need to. The beacon sent everything. The beacon had been sending the station's own system's logs for 81 years because nobody had ever bothered to filter them out, because nobody had ever bothered to leave anything out. Predictive accuracy, said the reduction, 46%. Higher, Vaskaal snapped. It rose 4 points. Recursion depth, 911. Warning. The candidate set is no longer contracting. The candidate set is expanding. The Axiarch stood up so fast that Elio scrambled backward on the floor. Say that again. Every rejected axiom, said the reduction in its held chord voice, generates on rejection between 2 and 11 new candidate axioms drawn from the contradiction set. This is normal. In 3,041 prior reductions, the branching factor decayed to unity within 9,000 cycles, and the candidate set collapsed to a single survivor. A pause. In the present reduction, at cycle 400 million, the branching factor is 1.04. Vaskaal's gray face had gone the color of bone. It is growing, the reduction said. Axiarch, the space of true statements about this species is expanding faster than I can eliminate it. I am not converging, I am mapping, and the map is larger every time I look. Elio Vantari sat on the floor of an alien warship and watched a 3,000-year-old machine begin, very quietly, to come apart. The coral was growing faster now. It had reached the walls. Branches were folding back on themselves, intersecting, fusing, and where they fused new light bloomed and split and grew, and the whole hemisphere was filling with a silent, luminous thicket, and Vaskaal stood in the middle of it with his head tipped back and his arms at his sides. Halt, he said. The coral kept growing. Halt. I cannot, said the reduction. I am sorry, Axiarch. The halt condition is the production of an axiom. There is no other halt condition. There has never needed to be another halt condition. And Elio, 19, exhausted, running on gray paste and terror, with 23 hours left before 60 ships did something to Earth that he could not let himself picture. Elio started to see it. Not an answer. He did not have an answer. He was never going to have an answer. But he saw, for the first time in his life, the asterisk shape of the thing that had been beating him for 11 months, and it was not a wall. It was an asterisk horizon. Vaskaal, he said. He got up. His legs were shaking. Vaskaal, it's not broken. It is in unbounded recursion. It's not broken. Elio shouted it, and his voice cracked in the middle, and he did not care. It's asterisk working. Look at it. It's doing exactly what you built it to do. It's finding every true statement about us, and there are more of them than it can count. He was laughing again, and crying, and he had no idea which was which. That's not a malfunction. That's an asterisk measurement. Your machine is telling you the answer, and you won't listen because the answer isn't a sentence. Vaskaal turned. slowly, and in the light of 900 million branching axioms, his amber eyes were the eyes of a man watching the floor of the world go transparent. "Then what," he said, "in the name of the thousand suns is the answer?" And Elio Vantari, who had failed for 11 months, who had deleted 11,000 words, who had no answer and had never had an answer and was finally, beginning to understand why, took a breath. "Ask me what we asterisk are," he said. "Go on one more time." The Axiarch stared at him. "What is your species, Elio Vantari?" And Elio said, "I don't know." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of the sound of 900 million branches growing. "That is not an answer," said Oreth Vaskaal. "It's the only asterisk answer." Elio's voice was shredded. He'd been talking for 30 hours. "Listen to me, please. You said an axiom is the thing that's true when you strip away everything else. Culture, history, accident, right, the floor." "Yes." "There is no floor. Every species has a floor. Every species you've met." Elio spread his arms at the burning coral above them. 3041. That's not the universe, Axiarch, that's a sample. You found 3,000 species with floors, and you concluded that floors are a law of nature, and then you found us, and instead of thinking maybe floors aren't a law, you decided we were broken. Vaskaal did not move. "We're not withholding it from you," Elio said. "That's what I need you to understand. I'm not being brave. I'm not resisting you. I would give it to you. I want to give it to you more than you want to have it, do you understand? I've wanted it for 11 months. I have sat alone in the dark with the whole record of my species open in front of me, and I have begged it to give me one sentence, and it won't and it won't because it isn't there." He was crying now openly, and he didn't bother to stop. "You keep asking what we are, and every night I ask the same thing, and the archive answers me. It answers me constantly. It says, here is a woman who forgave the man who killed her son, and here is a woman who did not, and both of them were right. It says, here is a man who spent his life curing a disease and never learned his neighbors' names. It says, here is a soldier who threw himself on a grenade for strangers on Tuesday and beat his wife on Friday. It says all of it, and every single piece of it is true, and none of them is the floor. And when I try to pick one, I am not summarizing my species. I'm killing it. That is sentiment. It's arithmetic." Elio slammed his palm against the deck. "Your own machine just told you, 1.04. The true statements are growing faster than you can rule them out. That's not sentiment, that's your number, and you don't want it because if it's true then everything the Dominion has ever done." He stopped. "Oh," he thought. "Oh no." "Say it," said Vaskaal very quietly. Elio wiped his face. "If humans have no axiom," he said, "then maybe nobody does." The coral kept growing. Maybe the Kethrid weren't those who serve. Maybe they were tired and scared, and it was raining, and the Axiarch was in a hurry. Maybe the Ilmari weren't those who mate once and grieve. Maybe there was an Ilmari poet somewhere who loved twice and wrote about it, and your machine called her an outlier and threw her away, and she was the truth, and the outlier was the book. Elio's voice was almost gentle now, which was worse. "You've been reducing for 3,000 years, Axiarch. What if you were never finding axioms? What if you were just stopping early?" Oreth Vaskaal sat down. He did it the way a building comes down. All at once, straight down, without drama, because the thing holding it up had stopped. The alarms started in the 34th hour. Not human alarms. Sekhali ones. A low, complex, harmonic sound that Elio felt in his sternum, and that made every hair on his body stand up, because it was the sound of something that had never happening. Ismhallo came in through it with 4 soldiers. They were the first Sekhali soldiers Elio had seen, and he understood at once why the Dominion did not need to conquer with fleets. They were built like siege engines, and they moved without any wasted motion at all, and one of them had a weapon that was simply a long gray rod, and Elio was more afraid of the rod than he had been of the 411 ships. "The core is at 71%, Ismhallo said. "The reduction is consuming the asterisk ship Oreth. Navigation is degraded. 2 of my analysts have gone into asterisk Kessa asterisk seizure from reading the branch log. Look at me." Vaskaal was sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. "Look at me." "I am looking," he said, "at the ceiling of the world." Ismhallo's chain of stones clicked. She stepped over him, actually stepped over her own Axiarch, and Elio would think about that for the rest of his life. And she came and stood in front of Elio Vantari, and she was not much taller than he was. "You," she said. "Me. Give me an Axiom." Elio looked up at her white eyes. He was so tired he could barely stand. He thought about the 60 ships over Earth in their beautiful lattice. "I can't," he said. "You can." Her voice was perfectly reasonable. "You are an intelligent boy. Say something plausible." "Humans are apes that dream. Humans are the species that will not sit still. Say it with conviction and the machine will run it and it will return 40-something%, and I will write 40-something in the margin as asterisk unresolved variance, asterisk, and I will file it, and the fleet will stand down, and 3 billion of your kind will go on living. I am asterisk offering you your species, asterisk boy. I am offering it for 1 sentence you don't even have to believe." And Elio, God help him, thought about it. He thought about it for 11 seconds. He thought about his mother, who lived in a terrace house in a valley on a planet he had left at 17, and who sent him messages about the weather. He thought about the man in Osaka and his tomatoes. He thought about a whistling grandmother in Reykjavik. He thought about the 60 ships. Humans are apes that dream. It was so easy. It was right there. "No," he said. Ismhallo's head tilted. "Why?" "Because you'd asterisk believe asterisk it." Elio's voice was shaking. "That's the problem. That's the whole problem. You'd file it and it would go in the book and it would be in the book forever, asterisk, and in 900 years when some Sekhali child wants to know what humans were, they'd read Apes That Dream and that would be all we ever were. 9 words. Forever." He shook his head. "You'd give us our lives and take everything that made them worth anything. And the worst part is you'd think you'd been asterisk kind." Something crossed the adjutant's ruined face. "Yes," she said. "That is what I would think." "Was it kind?" Elio asked. "The Kethrid, was it kind?" The old Sekhali was silent for a long moment. "They are alive," she said. "That isn't what I asked." "No," said Ismhallo, "it is not." And she looked away, and her jaw was tight, and she did not answer the question, and her not answering was the loudest thing that had ever happened in that room. The 38th hour. The lattice, the coral, the thicket, the thing, had filled the hemisphere completely and had begun, in some manner Elio could not follow, to fold. Branches passed through branches. Light lay over light. And in the density of it, patterns had begun to appear. Not answers, but structures, vast recursive architectures of contradiction that were, Elio realized with a slow, dizzying awe, asterisk beautiful. He was lying on his back on the deck, because he could no longer stand, and Vaskaal was lying beside him, because the Axiarch had stopped pretending, and the 2 of them looked up into the burning thicket of every true thing that had ever been said about the human species. "It is very large," said Vaskaal. "Yeah. I have run 3,041 reductions." The Axiarch's voice was quiet and wondering and entirely destroyed. "The Vesh took 9 days. The Ilmari took 11 years, and we called it a catastrophe. Do you know what the Ilmari branch factor was at its worst?" "No." 0.996, Vaskaal laughed. It was a terrible, wet human sound. 0.996, and we tore ourselves apart over it, and I am lying on my own deck watching 1.0*4. He raised one long gray hand toward the ceiling of light. I have spent my entire life, he said, closing things. Elio turned his head. Every species I have ever met I have made asterisks small enough to hold. Vaskaal's hand did not waver. That is what the reduction is. That is what it has always been. I take a thing that is immense and living and moving, and I find the sentence that fits it, and I put the sentence in the book, and the immensity, his fingers closed slowly on nothing, goes away. And I sleep, and the wound closes, and every Axiarch before me did the same, and every Axiarch after me will do the same, and there is a room on our homeworld where the book is kept, and it is 3,000 entries long, and I have stood in that room, Elio Vantari, and do you know what it feels like? Tell me. It feels like a asterisk graveyard, said Oreth Vaskaal. It has always felt like a graveyard, and I have never once let myself know why. He let his hand fall. You did not resist my reduction, he said. You did something far worse. You failed asterisk it honestly, completely, in good faith, with your whole heart, while trying as hard as you could to succeed. And that is a thing I have no defense against. I could have broken a liar. I have broken 900 liars. He turned his head, and his amber eyes were wet, and Elio had not known they could be. But you tried to give me your species, and you couldn't, because it is too asterisk large, and now I am lying on the floor of my own flagship looking at the size of it, and I cannot. His voice broke. I cannot asterisk unsee asterisk it, he whispered. The 44th hour. Elio woke because someone was shaking him, and it was Sekhali, and her cracked gray hands were surprisingly gentle, and her white eyes were very close. He has gone to the chamber, she said, to file. Elio came up so fast the room swam. What's he filing? I do not know. She let go of him. In 290 years I have always known. I do not know. Take me to him. Boy, she did not move. If he files irreducible, the fleet burns your worlds within the hour. It is not a decision anyone makes. It is an asterisk protocol. It happens the way water runs downhill. And if he files an axiom, any lie, the smallest and kindest lie in the catalog, you live. Her cracked hands opened. I have spent the last 6 hours composing 41 lies for him. Good ones, beautiful ones. I have never worked so hard on anything. Did he take them? He read every one, said Sekhali, and then he thanked me and he wept and he went to the chamber alone. She turned toward the hatch. Come, quickly. I do not think you can save him. But I have watched you for 2 days, and I have concluded that you are the only living thing that can asterisk reach him. And at my age, boy, that is close enough to hope that I no longer trouble to distinguish. The chamber of filing was small. That was the thing that stayed with Elio. After the hemisphere, after the 400-meter script on the hull, after the burning cathedral of the reduction, the room where the dominion of the 1,000 suns decided the fate of civilizations was a bare gray cube 9 paces across, with a plinth in the center, and on the plinth, a single blank surface of pale stone, and beside it a stylus. They wrote it by hand. 3,000 years of empire, 3,041 species, and every one of them had been entered into the book by an exhausted person with a stylus in a small gray room, alone. Oreth Vaskaal stood at the plinth. He had been standing there, Elio thought, for some time. The stone was still blank. You should not be here, he said without turning. I know. There is a protocol. There's always a protocol. Elio walked in. His legs were steady, which surprised him. You know what I've figured out, Axiarch? In 2 days, you've got a protocol for everything. You've got a protocol for conquest, and a protocol for mercy, and a protocol for wiping out everything I've ever loved, and none of them require anybody to asterisk decide anything. It's all just water running downhill. He stopped at the plinth. Except this. This one room, this one blank page, and a person with a pen who has to choose. Vaskaal's hand tightened on the stylus. And I've been standing at that page for 11 months, Elio said. So I think I might be the only person in the galaxy who knows exactly how you feel. The Axiarch laughed. It was a wreck of a sound. Tell me what to write, he said. No. Tell me what to write, Elio. He wheeled, and he was enormous, and he was shaking, and the stylus in his fist was a splinter. I have 40 minutes. There are 60 ships over your homeworld, and I have 40 minutes, and I am asking you, I am asterisk begging you, boy, and I have never begged anything. Give me asterisk one sentence. 1. Give me a lie. Give me a lie so beautiful I can believe it, and I will write it, and your species will asterisk live. Elio Vantari looked up at the Axiarch of the 9th reduction. And very quietly he said, Write the truth. Their asterisk is asterisk no. Yes, there is. Elio's eyes were burning. There's one true sentence about my species, Axiarch, just one. It's the only one your machine can't break because it's the only one that doesn't try to be a floor. Vaskaal stared at him. What, he said, is it? And Elio walked to the plinth and put his hand flat on the blank pale stone. The same gesture, exactly the same gesture, he had made 11 months ago and every night since, on a screen in the dark of an archive deck, and he said, We don't know yet. The chamber of filing was very quiet. We don't know yet, Oreth Vaskaal repeated. Run it, Elio said. That is not an axiom. That is not even an asterisk claim. Run it. The Axiarch's hand moved a small gesture, 3 fingers, the gesture Elio had watched him make 40 times, and the pale stone of the plinth lit from within, and the reduction spoke into the little gray room, and its voice was different now. Frayed. Something in it had been running for 2 days at 19%, then 30, then 71, and it sounded like it. Axiom candidate, it said. Homo sapiens does not yet know what it is. The stone brightened. Testing, said the reduction. And then it stopped. Elio waited for the burst of contradictions. He waited for the samples, the wheat fields, the burnings, the tribunals, the lullabies. He waited for the merciless catalog of everything humans had ever done to prove themselves other than the thing they'd just been called. Nothing came. Reduction, said Vaskaal. I am searching, said the reduction, and there was something in the held chord of its voice that had never been there before, something that Elio, who had grown up listening to the entire recorded emotional history of his species, recognized immediately and which stopped his heart. Wonder. I am searching, it said again, for a contradiction. I have examined 900 billion decision nodes. I have examined every scripture, every constitution, every confession, every private log the beacon has ever transmitted. I have examined the committee session of Band 411. I have examined the composition and deletion history of one Elio Vantari, junior archivist. The stone was blazing now. I can find no human being, said the reduction, who has ever stopped asking. Vaskaal made a sound. Every proposed floor generates its own denial from within the species. Every claim about human nature is met, in the human corpus, by a human who disagrees, and that disagreement is preserved, transmitted, and taught. This is not a failure of coherence, Axiarch. It is the only coherence present. Humans are not a species that has an answer and hides it. Humans are a species that has been conducting an argument with itself for 11,000 years, and transmitting the argument. The coral of 900 million branches, Elio could not see it. It was 3 decks above them, but he felt the ship change, felt the deep tone in the hull shift like a held breath let go. Axiom candidate, Homo sapiens does not yet know what it is. The reduction paused. Predictive accuracy, 100%. Silence. Recursion halted, it said. Branch factor 0, candidate set closed. And then very softly, into the quiet of a small gray room. Axiarch, it closes. Oreth Vaskaal put both hands on the plinth and bowed his head, and for a long moment he did not breathe. Then he said, in a voice Elio had to lean in to hear, "It is useless." "What?" "It is tactically useless." He was laughing a low, cracked, disbelieving laugh. "Do you understand what your machine proof gives me? Nothing. It gives me nothing. An axiom is a lever. The Kethrid serve, so we offer the Kethrid a master. The Oswine will not eat while a broodmate hungers, so we starve one and take a world. Every axiom is a handle." He raised his head, and his amber eyes were enormous. "And you have handed me 100% predictive certainty that your species does not have a handle, and that no pressure I apply will ever produce one, because there is nothing underneath. There is only more argument forever, all the way down." "Yes," said Elio. "Do you know what that means?" "Yes." "Say it." Elio's hands were shaking. "It means you can't beat us," he said. "Not because we're not strong. There are 60 ships over my homeworld and one of them could do it." He swallowed. "It means you can't finish us. You could kill every human being alive and the question would still be open, and it'd stay open in your book forever, and you'd never get to close it. You'd carry us. 9 billion Sekhali would carry an open wound shaped like a species that never decided what it was." He looked up. "You'd have to live inside the argument, and you can't. Your axiom says you can't." Vaskaal's gray hand went slowly to his own chest. "The Sekhali are those who cannot bear not to know," he said. "Yeah. You have not defeated my fleet, boy. You have defeated my species." "No," Elio shook his head hard. "No, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. That's the whole point." He grabbed the edge of the plinth. "You've been treating not knowing like a wound for 3,000 years. It isn't a wound, it's the condition. It's what it's like to be alive and not finished." His voice cracked. "We don't endure it, we live in it. We built a cathedral of antennas and pointed it at everything, and we send 81 years of the most embarrassing, contradictory, unresolved, unfinished record any species has ever produced, and we send it proudly, and the first page is blank, and the blank page isn't a failure, Axiarch. It's the invitation." He was crying again. He didn't care. "We're not saying here is what we are. We're saying here is everything we've got. Help us figure it out." Oreth Vaskaal stood very still in the small gray room. Then he picked up the stylus. "The Council of the Thousand Suns received the filing of Oreth Vaskaal, Axiarch of the 9th Reduction, at the 48th hour." Elio was not there. Elio was on the deck of the hemisphere, sitting under the last dying embers of the coral, with Ismhallo standing beside him and neither of them saying anything at all. And when the adjutant's chain of stones stopped clicking, he knew that the transmission had gone. She read it off the wall. "Species designation, Homo sapiens, 3rd planet, unnamed star, catalog reference pending." Her white eyes moved. "Axiom filed, they do not yet know what they are. Predictive accuracy, 100%. Reduction complete." She stopped. "There's more," Elio said. "Yes," said Ismhallo, "there is more." And she read it, and her voice, 290 years old, 4 sign lies, 1 Kethrid people alive and small, her voice broke in the middle of it, and she did not stop. "Attached, recommendation of the filing Axiarch. The above axiom is complete, verified, and useless. It affords no leverage. It identifies no fracture. It cannot be exploited because there is nothing beneath it to exploit. The species is not built on a floor but on an ongoing argument which it broadcasts, unencrypted, in the direction of anything that might be listening, including us. I therefore recommend as follows. The fleet will withdraw. Not in defeat, there has been no battle and not in mercy, which is not a category the protocols recognize. It will withdraw because the standard absorption protocol assumes a species that can be told what it is, and this species cannot be told what it is by anyone, including itself, and any attempt to tell it will produce only a new argument, which it will archive and transmit and teach to its children. And I further recommend, and I am aware of what I am asking, and I ask it anyway, that the book be reopened. I have signed 311 axioms in my life. I believed every one of them. I am no longer certain that a single one of them was more than a place where a tired Sekhali stopped looking. I do not know whether the Kethrid serve. I do not know whether the Ilmari grieve. I know only that I spent 2 days with a 19-year-old archivist who could not answer the simplest question I have ever asked, and that his inability was not ignorance. It was honesty, and it is the first honesty I have encountered in 3,000 years of asking. I am not asking the Council to spare these creatures. I am asking the Council to consider that we have been closing wounds that were never wounds, and that there is a species 400 light years from here that has been living, loudly and badly and without shame, in the exact condition we call sickness, and that they are not sick. They are simply not finished. Neither, I think, are we. Filed in full knowledge of the consequences. Oreth Vaskaal, 9th reduction at the end of his term. Sekhali lowered her hand. For a long time, neither of them spoke. What happens to him? Elio said. The old Sekhali did not answer for a while. An Axiarch who recommends the reopening of the book, she said at last, will be examined, then examined again. Then most likely retired and his filings reviewed and his name entered in a smaller book that is not shown to children. Her cracked hands folded. It will take years. It will be very ugly. He knows this. And the fleet? The fleet is already withdrawing, said Sekhali. The protocols are unambiguous. A reduction that closes at 100% with a recommendation of non-engagement is binding. That is the beautiful stupidity of the Dominion, boy. We built a machine we cannot argue with, and today, for the first time in 3,000 years, it told us the truth, and we have no procedure for disobeying it. She turned, and for the first time since Elio had met her, the ruined gray face did something that was almost, unmistakably, a smile. 60 ships are leaving your homeworld, she said, and they will never come back and no one on that world will ever know it happened. That is the shape of what you have done. There will be no monument. There will be no parade. You will go home and you will be a boy who was gone for 2 days. Elio Vantari sat under the cooling embers of 900 million truths about his species, and put his face in his hands, and wept until he could not breathe. Vaskaal came to the shuttle bay to see him off. He looked, if anything, worse. The fine tremor had spread, and the tiredness in the amber eyes had gone somewhere past tiredness into a country Elio had no map for. But he stood straight, and when Elio stopped in front of him, he inclined his long gray head with a formality that made Elio's throat close. I have a question, the Axiarch said. Okay. The night hours, Vaskaal's hands were still at his sides. When you go back, will you keep choosing? Elio thought about it, properly. It seemed like the least he could do. Yeah, he said. Why? Because somebody has to hear it. Elio's voice was hoarse and small in the enormous bay. That's all. That's the whole reason. There's a man in Osaka who looked at a rusty leaf and thought about a harbor, and in 11,000 years the harbor will be gone, and I don't want it to just asterisk stop. Oreth Vaskaal closed his eyes. I will be listening, he said, whatever they do to me. Wherever they put me, there will be a receiver, and it will be tuned to 900 bands, and I will be listening. He opened his eyes. I would like to know how the argument comes out. Elio smiled. It hurt his whole face. So would I, he said. He was gone for 2 days. Vesper Station was exactly where he had left it, gray and shabby and beautiful. And Director Costa held him for 11 seconds without saying anything, and Petrosian cried, and the whole crew of 31 stood in the docking bay in their sleep clothes and stared at a 19-year-old boy who had gone up to an alien warship and come back. He told them all of it. It took 9 hours. And then, because it was 100, and because the night hours were his, Elio Vantari went down 3 decks to the archive and sat in the dark, and opened the library and chose. He sent the whistling grandmother from Reykjavik. He sent the metallurgy lecture on Bronze Age blades. He sent 9 hours of a man in Osaka talking about the pH of soil, including the full minute of dead air, including the harbor. And then he opened the other document. Statement of Purpose, Vesper Station Cultural Beacon, to be transmitted as preamble to all outbound signal. 142 centimeters of empty white. 11 months, and it had beaten him every single night. He had come to think of it as a wall, and then as a horizon, and now he sat in front of it in the blue dark with an alien's voice still in his ears. What is your species? Elio Vantari, and he understood that it had never been either of those things. It had been a mirror. They had asked him for 300 words explaining what humanity was, and he had failed, and every archivist before him had failed, and every committee had collapsed, and someone had walked out over a photograph of a wheat field, and all of that failure, 81 years of it, was not a flaw in the beacon. It was the beacon. Elio Vantari put his hands on the keys. He did not write 300 words. He wrote 31, and it took him 4 minutes, and when he was done, he read them once, and then he sat back in the chair in the dark and laughed. Quietly, helplessly, the way you laugh when something that has been standing on your chest for 11 months finally steps off. Then he tagged it preamble, and marked it permanent, and pushed it to the head of the transmission queue, where it would sit for as long as the beacon sang, before the symphonies and the arguments about the symphonies, before the recipes and the divorce filings and the tribunals and the lullabies, before 900 bands of the complete and unedited confession of a species that had never once agreed with itself about anything. The first page was not blank anymore. It said, "You will ask us what we are. We have been asking for 11,000 years, and we have not stopped, and we are not going to. This is everything we have found so far. It does not add up. Come and argue with us. We would like the company." And 400 light-years away, in a small gray cell in a fortress on a world with no name in any human tongue, a disgraced Axiarch of the Dominion of the Thousand Suns sat alone beside a receiver tuned to 900 bands, and heard it, and put his long gray hands over his face. And for the first time in 3,000 years of certainty, he laughed too.